This is Mamafox Books Storytime Saturdays. I'm children's author Phoebe Fox, and I'm very happy you joined me for a new story today. Papa's Free Day Party was written by Marilyn Nelson and illustrated by Wayne Anthony Still. Permission for the reading of this book was given by the publisher, Just Us Books. How old are you, Papa? Johnnie asked as she curled up on her parents' bed. It was a winter evening in 1924. Papa, John Mitchell, his wife, Ray D., and the children were chatting and laughing the quiet way toward bedtime. Papa was sitting in his easy chair with his feet near the wood-burning stove. "How old am I, baby? I can't rightly say," Papa replied. "How can you not know how old you are, Papa? All you have to do is count up your birthdays." Johnnie couldn't understand that at all. Her birthday was November 1st, and she was 8 years old, 2 months, and 14 days old. "Well," Papa said, "I figure I must be near about 60, given that I was born a year or two after freedom come in 1865. But I don't know exactly what month or day I was born on, or even what year. Back when I was born, hardly anybody kept track of black people's birthdays. Just a few years before I was born, black children could be bought and sold, just like calves and colts, just like puppies. Sometimes they couldn't even live with their families. But of course, you already know that. When I was still too little to do much work, I heard grown-up people talking about when they were still in bondage. They used to scrape the last morsels of cornmeal mush out of the wooden bowls with wooden spoons and whisper about how great it would be to be free. I didn't know what freedom meant. I thought freedom must have something to do with having enough to eat. My father had run away to serve the right side in the war between slavery and justice. He came back with a limp, enough money to buy a few acres of uncleared land, and enough love to settle down with a wife. I lived the first years of my life there in a little one-room house with Ma and Pa and Willie, the baby. My world was that little house and the surrounding fields where we all worked hard all day, making things grow. One night when I was 5 or 6, horses galloped up to our house, and men wearing white hoods and carrying torches and rifles set fire to our home. I heard Pa scream. Ma screamed, "Run, John, run! Go north, boy, run, run!" It was dark. I was shaking with fear, but I ran. I slowed down just long enough to look up and find the North Star, and that's the direction I headed. Sometimes I stopped to drink from a creek. I stopped to sleep when it was daylight, but as soon as it got dark, I looked at the sky and started running again. Some days and nights later, I was eating a carrot in a garden when a big white hand landed on my shoulder. I was so tired and hungry and scared that I fell down in a faint. The man picked me up and carried me into his house. I woke up lying on a bed that felt like a cloud. 2 big white faces asked where I came from and what my parents' names were. I didn't know where I came from. I said my parents' names were Pa and Ma, and that ghosts on horseback set the house on fire, and Ma said, "Go north." Mr. and Mrs. Bryant looked at each other. Their son, Cullen, who was about my age, stood at the foot of his bed, staring at me with his mouth open. Cullen and I grew up sharing that bedroom. We played together. Sometimes we fought, and we got in trouble together, almost like brothers. Like the time we ate the peaches. Every summer, Mrs. Bryant canned most of the peaches from the peach trees in the yard, while Cullen and I hung around with our mouths watering.
One summer, when Mrs. Bryant was done canning peaches, she put the jars of canned peaches under the bed in the front room to cool, while she took the buggy to a revival meeting under a tent in town.
Mr. Bryant was keeping the Sabbath by fishing. As soon as we were alone, Cullen and I went straight to the front room and opened a warm jar of canned peaches. In a trance of pleasure, we ate every last jar of peaches and drank all the syrup too. We fell asleep on the floor with round bellies and smiles. Do you think they got in trouble after that? When Mrs. Bryant came home, she found empty mason jars rolling every which way on the front room floor. She went back outside to cut a switch and looked for me and Cull. She found us in front of the outhouse fighting over whose turn it was to go in. She didn't have to punish us. We spent most of that day and evening running in and out of the outhouse and moaning, doubled over in pain. For years and years after that, neither one of us boys could touch peaches, neither canned nor fresh. Cullen and I grew up to be young men and found jobs. I got a job on a ferry boat, guiding the boat back and forth across the Mississippi River between Missouri and Kentucky. One day, 2 strangers called me names and got up in my face, and I threw them overboard. I went right home and told the Bryants what had happened. We all knew my life would be in danger if the men came after me. The Bryants agreed that I should leave on a train the very next day. They sent me off with some of their farm animals and enough money to buy a farm. I waved goodbye to the Bryants for a long time. My train went west toward the new state of Oklahoma. There was a town in Oklahoma called Boley that I had heard things about that I could hardly believe. I'd heard that Boley was a town of people who looked like me, people who were born in bondage, or like I was, born to people who had been freed. In Boley, they owned all the farms and businesses in and around town. When I got to Boley, I spent an hour walking up and down Pecan Street, just looking at the men and women of this miraculous, free black town. Within a few days, I bought a piece of land to farm. I built a house. Then, for the first time in my life, I plowed my own land, grew my own crops, and slept under my own roof at night. I milked my cow every morning. The next evening, when they'd finished chores and settled down together, Johnnie was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Papa, it's sad that your Mama and Papa weren't ever with you on your birthday, but I bet they remembered." "Yes," Papa said, "if they survived." He sighed and was quiet. Then Johnnie asked, "Papa, can we give you a birthday? Can we make one up? Everybody ought to have a birthday cake."
"I already have a made-up birthday," Papa answered. "The Bryants always celebrated my birthday on April 9th, the day Lee surrendered to Grant at Appomattox, and the war for freedom was won. On that day, slavery was pretty much all she wrote. Mr. and Mrs. Bryant used to give me a little present every April 9th. I remember one year they gave me a pretty little pearl-handled jackknife. I had that knife for years. Don't know what happened to it."
"But that's not your birthday," Johnnie said. "That's your free day. Can we have a free day party for you then, Papa? With a cake and frosting and sweet tea and a red balloon?" "Yes, indeedy," John laughed. "With cake and frosting and sweet tea and a red balloon." But when April 9th came, Johnnie and Rufus were just getting over the chicken pox. Charlie B. had had a quarrel with her boyfriend, and Mama Ray D. had to teach all day. Nobody remembered to bake a cake. That afternoon, Papa was outside brushing Prince and putting him in his stall. The rest of the family huddled together. They had to think of something fast. "There's plenty of flour in the barrel," Johnnie said. "But there won't be any eggs until morning," Charlie B. said. "And you can't make a cake without eggs." "Can we make a pie?" Johnnie asked. "Nobody has birthday pie," Rufus laughed. "This isn't Papa's birthday anyway, smarty pants," Johnnie said. "It's his free day." "Well, I reckon we'll have to make a pie," Charlie B. said. "But there's only a few skinny little sweet potatoes left, and there's no fruit at all, and it's too late to take the buggy into town to buy something to put in a pie." "Well, we do have that jar of canned peaches Sister Washington gave me last July," Ray D. said. "But Papa hates peaches," Rufus said, recalling the famous day of the belly aches. "I can't think of anything else," Ray D. sighed. "Looks like it's peach pie or nothing. I'll make a crust as soon as I change my clothes and get out of these shoes." When supper was over, Charlie B. brought the pie to the table in a cloud of fragrant steam and set it in front of Papa. Little bubbles of amber juice peeked through its golden crust. It was a beautiful pie, but it was a peach pie, and everybody knew that John Mitchell hated peaches. Would this free day pie make him happy? Would he eat it? Would it make him sick? Ray D. and the children sang, "Happy Free Day to you." Papa sat there beaming. Then he cut the free day pie. Ray D., Charlie B., Johnnie, and Rufus held their breath. Papa raised the first forkful of pie, blew on it, and put it into his mouth. He chewed very slowly. A faraway look grew in his eyes. They watched him eat another bite. After he'd scraped the last morsel off his plate, he put his fork down and leaned back in his chair. Folding his hands across his belly, Papa smiled toward the ceiling and said, "That was the best dang pie I ever ate. Nothing improves the taste of food more than freedom."
And that is the end of Papa's Free Day Party.
If you get a copy of this book, you will not want to miss the afterword. It's full of photos and real stories that this book is based on. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you soon.